we can teach women how to write these checks, that's how we start tipping the scale. So what you're doing in the university level is remarkable, and it's been needed for so long. But until women GPs are funding women founders, that scale, remains a little bit imbalanced, and so the numbers won't move.
Welcome to our world-renowned podcast, Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray. I'm a TEDx and keynote speaker and author. Also, I'm executive producer of the movie Show Her the Money. Plus, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. Our weekly show features interviews with powerhouse women founders, funders, and change makers that are sure to inspire you. Let's go. Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation, as well as executive producer of Show Her the Money. And today I have on a great guest. She's led 4 exits for public and private companies. So I'm excited to have on the CEO of Dr. Noze Best. That's spelled N-O-Z-E, Dr. Noze Best. They do pediatric wellness brand delivery, hospital grade service for home health solutions. Please welcome to the show, Christy Brown. Hi, Christy. How are you?
I'm great, Catherine. I'm so excited to be here. Maybe a little nervous and intimidated too, but it's amazing to be in your company.
Oh, well, we're just all friends. And look at you, girl. You have led 4 company exits. Do you know how many people want to meet you?
Probably very few if you had to hear the trials and tribulations of going through all of that.
Well, there's always trials and tribulations, aren't there? Especially
Absolutely.
With 4 exits, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But 2 of those you were sharing with me, you found it. I do want to talk about your current position as CEO of Dr. Noze Best, but I also want to hear about these exits because I know we have a lot of founders and funders out there that like to hear those stories. So let's start with that. Tell us about the 4 companies that you help with these exits. I know some were public, some were private. What was one of the more interesting ones you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, probably the first company I founded, I was very early in my 20s. It was a service-based company. I hiccuped into what e-commerce was becoming very early in the .com era, and had the ability to build something great with a partner, and kind of accidentally put my foot into entrepreneurship. I really didn't consider myself an entrepreneur. I just was building a lifestyle, and that lifestyle became a scaling growth stage company that I eventually exited and sold. And that was probably the most interesting because, again, I didn't have the background to build a great big business. I wasn't, an investment banker, which tends to be the kind of the persona of many folks that dive in. I was an engineer and was building something for Next and just solving the problem that I saw my customers had. And that was really the most interesting, and figuring out, terms that I wasn't aware of that were innate in my daily language, like balance sheet and P&L. It wasn't something that I was running the business with. And so those were very early days for me, and probably again, I like to say that's where I cut my teeth, but it's also what made me a champion.
Absolutely. I say you learn by doing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just kind of accidentally, as they'll say, became an entrepreneur because you had a passion and an idea, and then you learn the rest. Don't you think that's how it happens for most? It's like you realize, oh, I didn't realize I don't know this and I don't know that. And I do think one of the toughest things for entrepreneurs is that they do try to do it all themselves. And I always say, do what you're really good at, what you love doing, and get other people to do what you don't do well and what you don't like doing. And they probably love it and really enjoy it and are good at it. That's what really makes a great team, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I endorse that daily. I often tell, especially rising women that are scaling companies or stepping into their first leadership role, go find the skills you don't have. That's the team you want to hire. Those are the people that insulate you and help you grow, and kind of put the strategic pieces to your business that you may be lacking or need to learn differently. And so I can't do anything without the proper operational strategy around me. And that is 100% spot on.
Uh, what was the name of the company that you started that we were talking about, the first one you founded?
Oh, Mask Digital.
And what did that company do?
Yeah, we were an e-commerce strategy company. So we would go into larger companies such as, here in Atlanta, just using a name like Coca-Cola, and help them design what their customer experience and e-commerce strategy was. This was very early days of the internet. And I shouldn't say of the internet, of e-commerce. Obviously, the internet's been around quite some time, but I would be a vampire if I was in the earlier days of the internet. But that being said, that's what we did. We went in and helped them really craft their strategy, their marketing, their vision for how they communicated and enticed customers to use their digital presence. And that's really how we grew very quickly. Those were very, early days of figuring out what did it mean to have a website, and how do we bring people to us, and how do they buy things online. And so it was a really fun time.
I could see why you were purchased, because that
Yeah,
was such an interesting niche to be in at that time when people were trying to figure out, even big companies,
absolutely.
e-commerce, which was a total game changer, right?
Yeah, and it was such an accident. I mean, I really did, I tell people all the time, I had, a great consulting strategy coming out of, or consulting role coming out of college. It evolved into I can do this myself, and that was always my mentality. And so it was just such an inherent need. We would go into these clients and we would speak, the long term, 1 to 2 year engagements when really they had an immediate need, and we stepped into that where there was just a vacancy in the market. And so, service-based businesses were part of my strategy up and until Dr. Knows Best. So we'll hear shortly more about that.
And when you were purchased, can you say what company purchased you?
I can't, but I can say that most of that deal was done internal, and I sold to a partner, my partner, that was in the business, and then eventually we exited that to a private equity company.
Ah, and so is that when you became an investor? Because I see you're a venture
No,
capitalist. You have been for a
no.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was about 8 years later that I did my first angel investment. Again, very accidental. Had a very young company, and I was running that PE playbook. So after I sold my first company, I stepped into another, and was really running a PE playbook for an acquisition strategy with a 5 year exit horizon. And so it was just a short time after me exiting that company to a public company that I did my first angel investment. I wasn't taught or understood quite what I was doing, but it was a very small investment in a woman-owned company here in Atlanta that was producing a consumer product, and I saw light at the end of the tunnel. And I knew if she had access and a little bit of capital and some resources around her, much like I had in the early days, that would definitely have a horizon to success for her. And so, I kind of gathered friends and said, let's write her $100,000 check. Who could put in $10,000 each, or 20,000, whatever your check could be. How do we do this? Honestly, at that time, and probably many of your listeners don't know this term, but I didn't know what SPV meant. And that's what we really were building, was this
Yeah.
special
Special
purpose
purpose
vehicle.
vehicle. Right.
Yeah, for investment.
And so
And
how did that
since then, I've done many of those.
first investment turn out? I'm just curious.
Yeah, she throttled the company about 4 years later. There were just, it was time, resources. There's some things I've learned as an entrepreneur. If you can't put 100% in, you're not going to get 100% out. And this was a bit of a side hustle for her. No, like most of us, probably doing this to kind of grow her own company, but just wasn't enough at stake for her, in as far as time to commit to the company to grow it. And she had a family to feed, and so I think we all understood that. But it was a key lesson of, okay, these are some key traits I need to look at, both as an entrepreneur but also as an investor, to make sure that my founders are committed 100%, no matter what the dollar, the size of the check is, that I need to understand exactly what that commitment looks like.
And you know what? You're sharing this story is so important to our listeners, because I'm always wondering how people got started. And most of the times they will make sort of a mistake at the beginning, just buying on pure passion and excitement about
Absolutely.
somebody or their product. And that we got to do a little bit more due diligence. And I love the advice you just gave people about what to look for, going in 100%. I agree with you. You have to eat, live, and breathe it. But you also, in order to become an angel investor or a venture capitalist, you do have to just jump in and start, and then you kind of learn along the way. That's the way I look at it. I've done the same thing years ago, jumping in to learn what I didn't know. But the best way to learn what you don't know is to do it, right?
Is by doing.
And
Absolutely.
I applaud you for doing that. And I see you're a venture capitalist. You're a limited partner, what they call an LP, in several venture funds. What made you decide to get into venture capital?
Yeah, so that's an interesting transition. I was exiting, I had an earnout to do with a company through my last exit. And once I completed that, I had a friend up in New York that was a venture capitalist that, I shouldn't say just friend. He was very much he is a entrepreneur and had multiple multi-billion dollar exits. And I just happened to have his ear, and he wanted to do something in Atlanta. And he was like, "Hey, you understand a little bit about angel investment. Let's build something." And I was exposed more heavily to venture capital at that time, and looking at deal and deal flow and how we would look at the criteria. And to kind of answer your question, it was also an accident. I didn't quite know it was venture capital until it was venture capital, if that makes sense. Like, oh,
Yeah.
we have to develop limited partners because we have to have, we have to raise this amount of money to deploy in this amount of time. And I got to learn all of that while doing. I don't think most people have, that latitude. I was super grateful for that experience because we did that for quite a few years. And I didn't really consider myself a venture capitalist as much as I'm a, insistent learner, that if you put me in this environment, I want to find the best companies. I want to deploy capital in a healthy way. I want returns for my partner, my limited partners. I want to make sure that we're, good stewards of our shareholders in these companies, and so on and so forth. And so I was kind of learning by the seat of my pants in many different ways. This was
Yeah.
not my background.
And
Yeah.
again, you learn by doing. And one of the things I like about venture capital is, people are pooling their money together into what's kind of like a mutual fund. And then those general partners who are, looking for the deals and vetting them for you are disseminating those funds into 20 or 30 companies usually. And then it kind of makes it less challenging. As when you're investing just in one company, you better know who you're investing in. But to put it into a fund, kind of takes away some of the risk.
Yeah, it de-risks it. Yeah, in a lot of different ways. And you have a bit more, wingspan to do some different investments and learn if you're in a fund. Certainly, yeah.
And you're one of the few women I had come across that has been doing this for a very long time. Not many women have been in angel investing and or venture capital. It's only been in the last few years, really not even in the last decade, but I'll give it the last decade. But the next decade, I think, is going to be a game changer, because there's entities out there like, I don't know if you've heard of Girls into VC, but they're at the college campuses. Girls in college are now learning about venture capital. We never had that opportunity. And so they're interested. They know it's a career path. They know it's a funding path. They know it's also an investment path. In fact, our Show Her the Money movie has just launched a college program. It's called VC 101. So it's an online program combined with our film, with video case studies that various universities and colleges are now picking up. We're going to be launching at Babson in the fall, and many other colleges. And so that's going to be a game changer for this generation, just for them to learn about it at a younger age, right?
Yeah. We, frankly need more women writing the checks. And so having those programs, even at the early stage, I hope we get down to the elementary school level, frankly, because if we can teach women how to write these checks, that's how we start tipping the scale. So what you're doing in the university level is remarkable, and it's been needed for so long. But until women GPs are funding women founders, that scale, remains a little bit imbalanced, and so the numbers won't move unless we do these things. So
Yeah, and 100%, I agree with you that um, we need to start even younger. In fact, we had originally wanted to start in the high schools, but we got funding to start into the creating a college program. But it is in my, future site that we want to create it also for high schools. So, well, I'm so glad that you're sharing this background, because I don't have a lot of people come on, a lot of women that have been in venture capital or angel investing as long as you've been, and I love that. And I think one of the biggest missions of Show Her the Money and our She Angel Investors is, getting the word out and the education out to women all over the globe of all ages and all ethnicities to understand about venture capital and how important it is to the future of the world in creating the future products and services. And because women purchase like 80% of all the products and services, we should certainly be deciding what those products and services are. So let's talk real quick about the new company that you're the CEO of, which is Dr. Noze Best. And Dr. Noze Best, I know you spell it Noze, for those looking for that online. You do pediatric wellness that's delivered like hospital grade to homes for health solutions. Tell us about that. I know you're based out of Atlanta. Is that in Atlanta, or is it around the country?
yeah, let me simplify who we are. We are actually a consumer product company, and we are focused primarily in pediatric respiratory care at home. And so, just to give you, I'll give you a tidbit of our origin story. But yes, we're national, and my team is around the country, but we are headquartered here in Atlanta, and that was born out of an affiliation that both myself and Dr. Stephen Gowdy, who founded the company and invented our product, our first product in market. We were both based inside Emory University doing different things, and so because of that, the company was born here. We were using our university resources and capital and so on and so forth. And so that is exactly why we're still in Atlanta as a consumer product company growing, because we have this med tech spin on us. But really,
But give me an example, like
yeah,
what types of
yeah,
products are you delivering? Yeah.
yeah, we created a whole new category 5 years ago in nasal aspiration. So our hero product is a product called the Noze, and it's the first of its kind hospital grade suction at home. So we created it out of, again, the origin story matters here, but what I'll tell you is the device has suction that is competitive to what you would have on the wall in a hospital room. Why that's important? Well, children up until they're 12 months old cannot breathe through their mouth. So when babies, and 99% of parents do not know this, 99, and I don't care if you have one child or four, 99% of parents I tell this to are just not exposed to the fact that children are obligatory breathers until they're not. So when you feed a baby and it has any type of congestion, that's why they send you home with the bulb, the blue bulb that suctions the nose. It helps keep the nasal passage clear. And we created something, or Dr. Gowdy actually invented the product based on his own experience of just every day, all day, seeing parents come into the hospital, into the ER, simply to have suction down on the nose. But a specific story that drove the innovation was he had a mother who was waiting in the ER, and her infant had Down syndrome. And she was there often because a child born with Down syndrome has just a different bone structure in its nose, and it often has respiratory tract infections and so on and so forth. But this little infant had been there, the majority of the day, and he stopped by to check on them. And she said, "I don't need you. I need this thing on the wall at home." and we can do better. And Steve has 3 children of his own, and his wife said, "You're darn right. You can do way better than this." And I shouldn't have to spend, hundreds of dollars to go to the hospital every week to suck snot. And that was really the impetus of building our NozeBot. And that's what we do. That's our hero product. And so all of our other products really treat around breathing or symptoms. We have a couple of new products coming into market over the next couple of months that'll be released in Target. And those are around symptom relief and care around congestion. So that's really who we are. We're focused on breathing.
Wow. And so when a mother brings home a newborn,
Yeah.
she needs this product for that baby?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's
And,
been
and
life
for
changing.
how long? How many months did you say?
Well, they can't breathe through their mouth until they're about 12 months old, but
12 months.
Yeah.
Wow. For the
Yeah.
whole first year,
Yeah.
they need this contraption that you all sell.
But even
and it can be
beyond
delivered
that, like
to
most children don't
Yeah.
even blow their nose. Can't you've seen a child try to blow its nose. It's funny and yet not funny because they can't blow their nose till they're 4 or 5 years old, and even those with congestion problems, allergies, and things like that, adults use our product. It's even though we target a specific market, adults use our product. Chronic care uses our product. So there's a lot of congestion that we deal with, and certainly COVID opened our eyes to breathing. So, we're much more in tune to that. But yes, any parent that comes home, we feel needs this product because day to day congestion or RSV, COVID, colds, cough, flus, the average child that's in daycare will be sick 14 to 20 times per year. So it's pretty extraordinary. Yeah.
So they would go to, why don't you give us the website?
It's www.drnozebest.com.
drnozebest.com.
Yeah.
Very clever. Wow. It sounds like every expectant mother should be using this. And I think I have some people to connect you to that
Yeah.
are, there's an entity providing like doulas for
Yes.
newborn.
Doulas
Yeah,
are,
and sounds
some of our best friends because they care for that postpartum, mother and help in so many different ways. So yes, those are great,
Yes,
great connections
yes, they
for
need
us.
this information.
Yes.
Well, good work that you're doing, Christy.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your personal finance journey, and I'm sure that's been very helpful to others. And I really appreciate the great work that you're doing. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Do you have any stories that you want to share about anyone using this product?
Oh, I think there's hundreds of thousands of stories at this point of product usage. I think, just cleanliness is our big theme, the child being able to breathe. I don't have anything in particular. I do have a gentleman that has a wife that has ALS that uses our product that brags, how he's able to treat her and not and with dignity, right? And so that's a really cool story to hear in the adult sector. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands, like I said, of parents that send us comments and ratings. And so I wish I could pick one in particular thing, but really the origin story moves me more than anything else.
Right. And that ALS story, that's amazing
Yeah.
also. I mean, all the usages for this.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Of
coming
course.
on and sharing about this. More people need to know about it for sure. I've certainly learned something today. And can people find you also on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah. Christy Brown, very easy and happy to connect there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as needed.
So please reach out. Christy Brown, CEO of Dr. Knows Best. I'm Catherine Gray. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Catherine with a C and Gray with an A. Be sure to watch our movie called Show Her the Money. It'll teach you about venture capital and the impact it's going to have on our future and why you would want to be a part of it in some capacity as an investor or as an entrepreneur looking for funding to scale your business. So great having you on, Christy. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Make it a great week.